Good morning. We are starting our day off with a seed delivery. Got a box of beans on the trailer and we are going to head off to make our delivery here. It's an hour away, so it's a two and a half hour trip, but when we get back we'll start side dressing again. Phil is grabbing some anhydrous tanks for us, so that is a good thing. We'll have plenty to do when we get back. Let's have a good day, shall we? Okay, we're leaving with more than we brought. Empty boxes. We loaded up a full load of empty boxes, about kind of a full load. We did not collapse them, break them down. He didn't have them done. I didn't want to take time to do it right now. I want to get back because we got side dressing to do. So we just loaded 12 of them up on there. I look really heavy. I'm not. They're empty. So we'll take them back and worry about unloading them and stuff later. But let's go start side dressing corn. Just got back here. We will worry about this later. I had a customer of mine, neighbor, that had a few extra bags of beans, so he just dropped those off on a pallet. We'll take care of those sometime as well. I had another guy come and take the last of my treated paper bags that I had anyway, so having those here is good for anybody else that calls. We need to go side dress some corn. Let's go. Phil even got our new tank hooked up for us. Okay, so we are off. We are heading back to the same field we were in last night. We got about 5 acres to finish up there, and then we're on to the next field where we should have a couple tanks sitting there waiting for us, and then we're going to go up to our irrigated field and get that one side dressed and done and out of the way. So if we get all of that done today, we'll be having a dang good day. It is 11 o'clock, so you know, a little bit of a late start, but it's okay. It's still early. We got plenty of time, but we don't sit around and wait. So Phil's got a weight ticket from that first tank last night sitting here. 5,940 pounds, the official weight on it. Our applicator said 6,080. So we got it on just a little bit light. We will put a calibration number in there and run it again and see how the next one goes, I guess. Like I said, we didn't have a lot to do over here, mostly just in front of and behind this little wet hole or area over here. So we got this back filled in, we got a little bit to do up here, and then we'll go to the next field. Okay, so we have a couple of fields here. We had this little like 9 acres that we're starting with because, well, we were driving by it first. I have been trying to figure out the John Deere auto path. So we run an implement receiver on our planter for implement guidance, but it also creates auto path lines, which I should be able to use for side dressing to be able to auto steer exactly where the corn rows are based on the planter data. Last year we were unable to use it because we plant with a 60-foot planter and our side dress bar is 37.5 feet, and those numbers are not compatible, apparently. I was told a year ago, directly from John Deere, that they had an update coming that was going to fix that issue of software that would work this year. Well, I mean, it calculates out lines, but they're not even close to where I need them to be. They're not right. It's basically trying to make me do 2 passes to every planter pass, essentially making this a 30-foot bar instead of 37.5. And that's not efficient. Like, I'm not doing that. So we're just going to go back to using our regular old RTK auto steer, and it will work just fine. I kind of decided for this one field we can drive it, but that's kind of a bummer. I was really hoping that would work, but see, this line over here is where it wants me to be. We're 12 feet off of that line. Maybe it was just the first pass it wants me to do too. I don't know. It's weird. I don't understand, and it won't let me shift the line to where I'm at. I can shift it like 15 inches or something, but I can't shift it 12 feet, which is what we're off. So we just won't use it, I guess. We're a long way from this whole autonomy thing. Jumped across the little ditch here. You can definitely tell this was the very first pass that we planted. We had fertilizer issues big time in this field. This is where we were plugging rows up all the time and stopping to get out and dig them out and all kinds of stuff. But this corn looks really yellow on these first ends where we started. a little streaky out here. It's all right. We got it fixed after this field, so it's just the one. But we're gonna see what our starter does for us, I guess. Oh, you can really see the yellow corn here. You can see exactly where the starter kicked in and out at. That corn looks terrible. Alright, now we gave up on our auto path because the lines were going to be way off again. So we're setting up our regular straight track. We just got to shift our line over from where we created it to our 37.5 foot spacing. And they're all the same all the way across, so the RTK is good enough even without knowing where the planter went. Alright, so we finally got some end rows done. I'm making a pass up through the middle of the field here because that's where we were. One thing about this field, this one, it was the first planted corn, but it is also one of the fields where we had that chicken litter spread last year. And my experiences in the past have told me that there's a lot of nitrogen in that chicken litter. And while we do apply it in the fall, we are getting something out of it. A few years ago, we had a field of some corn that was had chicken litter spread the previous fall, and we did some stalk nitrate samples later, testing N-Serve and some different nitrogen stabilizer products and stuff. And one of the unexpected findings was that we had a lot of nitrates left in our stalks at harvest time, therefore meaning we had way more nitrogen than we needed. And that was because of the chicken litter and the fact that I had put on our normal side dress rates anyway. So, since then, I have cut back a little bit on how much nitrogen we apply on fields where we put chicken litter in the fall. And this happens to be one of them, so I just adjusted my prescription down 10%. I've done more than that in the past, but I don't want to get carried away. So, we're down 10% on our normal, I guess, for this field. Now there's one empty tank for the day. Going down the road over there. Phil was here waiting for it. What do we got done? 17 acres in this field, plus the 9 and the 5 and whatever. About 30. That should be about right. So, is that right? 9, 5, 17. Yeah, that's close. Marching our way across this field. For the most part, most of this corn looks pretty good. There's a few pockets of some thistles or some weeds over on the far side there. We'll clean it up with some glyphosate when we come in and do our V5 fungicide, which is less than 2 weeks away, I would say. Maybe only a week away. A little unevenness with the yellow and the fertilizer streaking that we had in this field, but we got that taken care of everywhere after here, because the other field that we've done was the one right after we cleaned everything out and didn't see the same issues there. So that is good. I'm debating on, yeah, we need to go and keep moving and get the next field, but I've got a few other things that I need to do, run around, get some stuff for tomorrow. We're having a birthday party for my daughter. It was a week and a half ago, but we're going to do it tomorrow. And, well, I need to get some stuff, so I'm going to have to go and do that. So I'm thinking when we're done with this field, I'm going to go back to the farm, park it for a little bit. Phil's waiting on this tank to get empty. It's about there. We got 600 pounds left in the tank, so another round or two and we'll be empty. Hook onto that last one, finish this up, and we're making progress. Our applicator is working exceptionally well. I see zero bleed off or smoke or leakage or whatever you want to call it. I see none at the moment. Occasionally we'll get a little bit, especially on the vapor rows. At some point here, maybe today, I'll go through how this thing works and what exactly we're doing, but not at the moment. But anhydrous ammonia is what we're using. It is a gas that is a liquid under pressure. We are injecting it into the soil, trying to keep it cold enough to be a liquid, at least to measure it, and then it binds to our soil once we get it in there. And sometimes if it's not enough moisture, you don't get it deep enough into the ground, it can bleed off and it looks like smoke coming out of the ground, just a white vapor. But I don't see any. It means our bar is working. It's very dry, very dusty. This is the driest we have been all spring by far. 4 or 5 days ago, they were calling for rain every day this week, and we have gotten none of it. There was a reason we pushed it on Sunday and Monday to get done planting the corn down to Berkey, because they said it was going to rain Tuesday through the weekend, all the way through. and we've gotten none. Had I known that, we probably would have waited another day or two down there and given it a little bit more time. But that was not the forecast at the time, and they were calling for significant rainfall, like Wednesday, Tuesday night, Wednesday, and we've totally missed it. So should have waited. Oh well, it's done. Last pass here, and we're done. Cool. All right, I'm gonna head back to the farm for a little bit. Like I said, I got a few errands I need to run, and then we'll probably jump back in this and keep it moving later tonight. One of my favorite things about side dressing versus planting is that it's so much faster getting set up and go. Like, I don't have to stop to fold. We just pull out on the road and fold her up and go, and it's fast and easy to getting set up once you pull into the field. We gotta stop and change tanks more often, but that's a lot quicker than the loading that we have to do at the farm with the planter and the fertilizer and the seed and everything else. So we're not as wide, we can't go as fast, we can't cover, well, we do go as fast, but we're not covering as much ground because we're not as wide, but we're able to run a lot more active hours during the day, you know, and so we still get it done pretty quick. We are over 100 acres into it and off to a really good start. Phil has 4 more full tanks for me at the next field, so we could run for the rest of the night on that if we want to. It is Memorial Day weekend, so our supplier, they said they would be there tomorrow till noon at least, if not 3, but kind of depends on the weather. It's supposed to rain tonight. Kind of hope it rains tonight. All right, part of my errands and things to run was I wanted to stop at our local pipe supplier, the irrigation place, but they don't really sell pivots and stuff. They sell mostly dragline stuff for manure or a lot of landscape irrigation. But it is the place where we bought our Cadman Traveler from. They're a dealer for them. Anyway, I needed some pipe and some fittings for our system up there and some well in our well. So I want to make sure I had everything at least ordered or ready to go when we are ready for it. And I'm hoping they're going to finish the well first of next week. That's the goal, unless they're up there today, but I doubt it. So we got some stuff. We're going to bury 6-inch PVC pipe. These 2 long ones are our Z pipe, and they will basically set something like this, where this is above ground and that is well below ground, and our PVC slides into there. And then we can, that's sort of heavy, we can attach via the flange fitting there this piece. This is a chemigation valve. So this has got a check valve in it. See the big flapper in there. And it's got this port here to inject our fertilizer and everything that we want in the water, but a check valve to prevent anything from getting back into the well. This is for the air intake, airlock stuff, so that when everything shuts down, it can suck air in or whatever it needs to do to drain it and reduce any vacuum that may be created. So that will attach to one of these Z pipes. The other Z pipe is for the other end where we come back out of the ground. Here we have the flange, 6-inch flange to 4-inch threads that will go on the inlet side of this, and then we have a 4-inch brass ball valve. I don't know what that valve cost me, but I guarantee you it was expensive. With then a short pipe nipple to go into the 4-inch female threaded pipe T, or female pipe thread, NPT, that I was told is going to be what we have to hook into from the well side. So that's all good. The only thing we are missing then is we need to go from 6-inch flange to 3-inch flange coming back up above ground, and we do not have, they didn't have that piece. They said they could order it and get it, and then we've got to get the pipe, obviously. And they had about half of the pipe that we're going to need in stock and can get the rest of it within the next week or so, or probably sometime next week. So we've got what we need. We just got to get the well finished up and then get our tile guy to come in and make a trench for us, most likely. We could probably do it with the backhoe, but whatever. Anyway, we got that stuff. Now, I got a few things to drop off at my house. Ice cream. I have ice cream that can't melt for a birthday party tomorrow. And then we're going to go put some more anhydrous on. Yeah. Back up here in the field with our anhydrous applicator going and making dust and all is good. This is our field where we are going to irrigate. So we're going to get this done. I need to get this corn sprayed. I've got some foliar stuff that we're going to use. Not the whole field, but I'm going to do some strips of some foliars and stuff. Try and really push a little bit of it. So we need to get that done, and we need to get this anhydrous on, and we need to get our pipe buried, and I am ready to turn that dang thing on. It's supposed to rain tonight and tomorrow. If it happened to not, I would probably start thinking about firing it up, but we're not that dry yet, and the corn's pretty small, so it has very low water demands. But we're getting to that point where if it stays dry, it's time. It's time to have our rain running, and we need to make sure we can do that. So once I get some Endros done and opened up here, we'll have a little discussion about anhydrous, what it is, how it works, why we use it, all that good stuff. Working on another set of Endros here. Found one of those things that you always stop for. One of those things. That's a tire poker. It's amazing that we've never caught that in a combine tire or a tractor tire. Okay, so the tractor tires won't go flat here, but I can't imagine that would be good on a track either. While we're out here, there's a fence post in that woods in case anybody ever tears them out. Let's start talking about our anhydrous and what we are doing. So, I've sort of mentioned it already, but we're putting anhydrous ammonia. I should call it ammonia. Anhydrous is just what I've always called it, and it's easier. It's not actually anhydrous. Anhydrous simply means that it doesn't have any water. It's lacking water. The ammonia is what it is. Its chemical formula is NH3. NH3. And it is a gas normally under normal pressures. When it gets super cold or under pressure, it turns into a liquid. We've covered that. We apply it to our fields because it is 82% nitrogen. All nitrogen fertilizers, basically all nitrogen fertilizers, start as anhydrous ammonia. So this anhydrous that we're putting on is kind of the beginning stages of making nitrogen fertilizer. Now it can be used as a standalone by itself, or you can keep converting it into UAN, 28, 32% liquid, urea, different forms of nitrogen there. That's why anhydrous tends to be the cheapest on a per pound of N basis, because it's the least processed, if you will. So we know nitrogen is produced by the form of, or in the form of anhydrous ammonia in a process called the Haber-Bosch process. Basically, they're taking atmospheric nitrogen, because the air you breathe, that all of us breathe, is 78% nitrogen, almost 80%. The problem is the atmospheric nitrogen is in the form of N2 gas, and N2 gas is two nitrogen molecules that are very tightly bonded and very difficult to break apart. The Haber-Bosch process uses heat and electricity and hydrogen, and it is possible. There's a way to do it through electrolysis, but anyway, and you have to break those bonds. Plants by themselves, and us as humans and animals, cannot break the bonds between N2 gas. There are some microbes that can do it, however. This is the nitrogen fixing bacteria that we add to our soybeans, and that can help feed the legumes with the nitrogen that they need, and why we don't apply nitrogen to our soybean crop. Corn doesn't have that relationship with those bacteria in the soil, and so therefore it needs the nitrogen to be available to it via some other process. There are microbes in the soil that will take atmospheric nitrogen and break it down into a plant available form, usually in the form of ammonium, NH4. We'll get back to that in a second. But they can't do nearly enough to supply the corn crop with what it needs for us to have a good, productive corn crop. Coincidentally, those microbes are the same ones that source product that I sell is designed to help stimulate and activate and make them do more for us, but still not going to get the amount that we need to produce a good corn crop. Speaking of that, how much nitrogen do we need? Well, general rule of thumb is that you need 1 pound of nitrogen for every 1 bushel of yield goal that you have. So if I am shooting for 200 bushel corn, I need to have 200 pounds of nitrogen available. That doesn't mean I have to apply 200 pounds of nitrogen. It means I need to have 200 pounds available. Those microbes are going to give me some. The other source of nitrogen that we have is from the organic matter in our soils, and that can vary a lot, especially around here, but most of our organic matter levels are between 2 to 3.5%. And you can figure you'll get maybe 15 to 20, maybe more pounds of nitrogen per percent of organic matter. So if we had a 2% organic matter soil, which would be on the low side, you might get 40 pounds at the absolute most of nitrogen per acre from that. Okay, we can maybe figure that in, but you're also trying to shoot for a yield goal that you really don't know what your potential is until you figure out what the weather is for the year, right? So, given that we need, say, 200 pounds, and we might get 40 from our soil, and we might get another 20, 30 pounds from the microbes, that still leaves a significant gap of at least 125 pounds of nitrogen that we have to make up somewhere. Hence, the nitrogen fertilizer. Now, nitrogen is probably the most complex nutrient that we deal with in how it behaves in the soil, in the plants, and just in nature in general, because there are multiple different forms of it, some more or less available to the plants, and some more or less mobile in the soil and in the environment. So this is anhydrous ammonia. It is NH3. We inject it into the soil. The second that it finds a water molecule in the soil, it binds to that water and forms ammonium, NH4+. NH4+ is a positively charged ion. Our soil is generally negatively charged. They bind together very, very well and are held into that soil for the plants to take up. Ammonium is a plant available form of nitrogen. Our corn loves ammonium. It can take it up and use it. It is not the only form of nitrogen that it can use, though. It can also use nitrates, NO3, or nitrites, NO2. Now, there are those microbes in the soil, or different microbes in the soil, that love to convert and eat nitrogen. And so they take that NH4 that we're putting into the soil here, or that is forming in our soil as we're injecting NH3, and they start feeding on it and eating it, and they excrete NO3, nitrate. That nitrate, however, has a negative charge. Well, that's a problem for us. Because remember, our soil is also negatively charged, and a negative don't bond together. So now all of a sudden, that nitrogen in an NO3 form is subject to loss via leaching or denitrification, and it can move down through the soil mostly with water. Which is why we don't want to put our nitrogen too deep, because it's only going to get deeper and deeper into that soil profile. Nitrates, however, and NO3 are also a plant available form of nitrogen readily absorbed by the plant. So as long as this conversion process doesn't happen too quickly, and then it doesn't leach down too fast into the soil, depending on rainfall and temperatures and all of those things, it's not the end of the world. Our plants can still use that. We did not lose that nitrogen. It is available to our corn. Again, as it converts from NO3 to NO2, nitrites, same type of process. There are different microbes that convert the NO3 to NO2, and it is again a leachable form, but still plant available. Okay, all of these are good things. All of those, I shouldn't say all of those forms without knowing for sure. I think all of those forms are somewhat subject to volatilization, but generally when they're tied to the soil or in the soil, that's not a huge concern. The NH3, as we're putting it in, is subject to volatilization, or if you spread, say, urea or UAN 28 on the soil surface, as the sun and the air kind of bake that nitrogen that's laying on the surface there, it is subject to volatilization, where it basically just converts back into N2 gas, and you lose it before it ever even gets into the plant or into the soil where the plants could take it up. So that's why putting it under the soil surface is generally better than leaving it on the surface. Now, there are some nitrogen stabilizers, different products that can help prevent, whether it be volatilization or the leaching or the conversion from NH4 to NO3. Those are all things that we can add to our nitrogen products. They come with some benefits and also some drawbacks. For example, the stabilizer that prevents the conversion of NH4 positive to NO3 negative, well, it does that by basically killing the bacteria that makes that conversion. Well, if it's killing that bacteria, what else is it working on? That's probably not the best thing from a soil health perspective. There is also an argument to be made that if I can't breathe anhydrous ammonia, what are all the microbes in my soil doing right now? Now, we've been using anhydrous on this farm for 40 years, and we still have lots of earthworms and microbes. So it's not that critical. It is probably not great right in the immediate zone and band where we were putting the anhydrous, but it pretty quickly dissipates into NH4, and then those microbes can get back into that area. So pluses and minuses with the anhydrous there too as well. So why do we use anhydrous ammonia instead of other forms of nitrogen? Well, because it's generally the cheapest. That's the biggest reason. Other factors are the cost. Like I said, it's the cheapest to produce because it's stage one of producing other fertilizers. And for me, yes, there is a risk of handling anhydrous, the inhalation hazard and stuff. But it is so much more concentrated than, say, 28 or even urea, that the volume we have to handle is tremendously smaller. Like, if I was using 28 to replace the nitrogen that we were putting on, it would take somewhere in the ballpark of 90,000 gallons. That is a lot. That creates a huge logistical issue of how do we store it, how do we transport it, how do we get it to where it needs to be, when it needs to be, where it needs to be. Follow that? So that's why I kind of like anhydrous. Now, we do have that soil health issue of the microbes and everything else in the soil, but it's also a plant available form that's one stage farther away from being lost down through the soil profile than UAN, which UAN is 50% ammonium nitrate, 50% nitrate. So it's already basically half through that conversion process, going from NH4 to NO3. So the anhydrous has an advantage there. However, 28 is safer for the microbes in the soil. It is safer to handle. You don't have the inherent risk with it. It's still, you want to be careful with it and not, touch it. Want to wear gloves, that kind of stuff. But it comes with the handling aspects and challenges. Anhydrous also takes a little bit more horsepower and a lot more iron to get it put into the soil, because it has to be injected 4 to 6 inches deep into the soil. Because of that volatilization issue, you've got to get it into the soil where it can bind with the moisture in the soil. So it takes power and iron to do so. 28 being a liquid form, you can put it on the surface. I wouldn't, but it doesn't have to be incorporated nearly as deep, which is better for the plants because your nitrogen's where the roots are instead of down below the root zone. And it's easier on the horsepower, and you don't wear stuff out nearly as fast. If we were to switch to a liquid form, we could potentially trade our 15 shank anhydrous applicator and get a 23 or a 25 shank or row and 28 applicator that would allow us to follow the 60-foot planter. That would be an advantage. The other form of nitrogen that's very common is using a dry form called urea. Urea is 46% nitrogen, so it's somewhere in the middle of that 28% liquid and 82% ammonia. And it comes with its own set of issues. One, you have to spread it. There are other ways with strip till and stuff to kind of inject that dry fertilizer, but for all intents and purposes around here, you're going to dry spread that on top of the ground, preferably right before planting. And that means you have to get an even spread pattern, which can be a challenge. Most of the time, the retailers around here that are spreading urea will double spread a field. They will spread it twice, offset 50% either swath width or maybe cross width. I don't know how exactly. But in order to ensure adequate coverage and you don't get streaking in your nitrogen coverage application. The other problem with urea is that it is very volatile, and if you lay it on the soil surface and it sits there for 5 days with no rain and not getting worked in, it's pretty much going to be gone, or at least a significant portion of it. That's not good, because then your corn can't get it. Once it's gone into the atmosphere, it is gone. That said, we do have 2 fields where we put some dry urea on ahead of planting and we worked it in. My idea is that we will try it because we lost our anhydrous supplier that we had been working with. So I'm just not sure how this is going to go this spring and whether the new supplier is going to keep up. Sidebar. That said, I have 5 full anhydrous tanks sitting in this field right now. Like, we're really good shape. They're doing a phenomenal job. So all signs are good so far. But we might be the only ones side dressing at this point too. Anyway, I had sort of, even before we lost our supplier, been kind of contemplating the idea of maybe we should switch to liquid. Better soil health, better safety handling issues, and it would allow me to get it done faster with a bigger applicator. There's the cost issue, and there's the volume issue that we have to get over, though. Those are hurdles. Now, the other side of this that we have not really touched on a lot is soil holding capacity. And so let's talk about this field that we're in right now. This is our irrigated field. There's a reason that we irrigate it. This back half here, it's river bottom ground. It's heavy clay and it can hold a pretty good amount of nitrogen. But we happen to be climbing up a sand ridge here. And as we get up over here where the ground is a lot lighter and has a lot more sand content, it's coarser, our CECs are lower, our cation exchange capacities. And when you get into a lower cation exchange capacity, your soil cannot hold on to as much nitrogen or any nutrients for that matter. And so, you know, the general rule of thumb again here, not exact numbers, but if you have a CEC of 20, you can hold 200 pounds of nitrogen in that soil. If you have a CEC of 10, you can hold 100 pounds. Some of this in here may be in that 8 to 12 range. Some of it back over there may be in the 15 to 20 range. It just varies that much. But because we're watering this field and we're going to be using this 360 rain with the ability to inject fertilizer into that water, I don't have to put so much on here. I have a really high yield goal in this field. I have a yield goal of 300 bushels. None of our soil can hold 300 pounds of nitrogen. Can't do it. Even if you take some off for organic matter and other sources, we're not going to be able to hold enough nitrogen to supply this crop, putting it all on at once right now. Now we put a little bit on with our planter that's already getting into that corn plant, so we're already using some, but the amount that's in the corn right now is very low compared to what it's going to need. How'd I do there? That was a tricky turn talking to you guys. Missed by a row. It's alright. It's alright. Anyway, so as we are applying nitrogen to this field, I'm actually putting a lower rate on than I would on a non-irrigated field. And it's not because I don't need the nitrogen, I do. It's because I have the ability to spoon feed it throughout the year. We're going to use that machine sitting right there to put nitrogen on almost weekly or every other week, right up until it's tasseling and starting to fill ears out late into the season. Because we can make sure that that nitrogen is still there and available to our corn in August when we're trying to fill grain and we want to pack as much starch into those kernels as possible. So, you know, given our little bit lower CECs on this lighter ground, this is some of the lightest ground that we've got, and the ability to add some later, yeah, we're lowering our rates a little bit. It'll be okay. Plus, this is another one of those chicken litter fields that we've probably got some nitrates still out here from that. Because while they are leachable, the speed of that process can vary drastically from year to year. And who knows how much of that nitrogen is actually out here. Now, we could pull soil samples, do a soil nitrate test. We've done some of that in the past. It really isn't going to change anything. I'm going to do this the same way no matter what that says. So we don't typically do a lot of that. All right, that was a lot of information I threw at you in probably a 10-minute speech. I am not an expert on this, so if I got something wrong, feel free to correct me down in the comments below. And also know that I understand everybody has their own way of doing things. This is the way that works for our farm. Some of you are going to use all dry, some of you are going to use all liquid, some of you are going to use a combination of lots of different things. Some people don't use any nitrogen and they do it all in organic forms with a chicken litter, manure, or something else of some other form. That is fantastic. I'm glad that works for you guys. This is just what we have found works for us. Like I said, I am kind of kicking around the idea of going to more liquid nitrogen. I've got these experimental fields with some urea dry on them that will come back in and side dress at a much lower rate, whether that's with anhydrous or liquid via Y drops. Problem with Y drops, you're putting it on the soil surface. It takes rain to get it washed into the root zone where the plants can get it. There's just a lot of different ways to do this, and they all have their advantages and disadvantages, and it kind of depends on what you're comfortable with and what you're set up to handle. And right now, this is what we are set up to handle. So, all right, our tank is getting low. I gotta watch my gauges, because as soon as my gauges start dropping and losing pressure, that means it's empty, and we gotta switch it out. All right, we got an empty tank. We gotta switch it out. I got my respirator on, part of that safety thing, and when I can do this, it doesn't really bother me. I'm gonna put my gloves on, and then we have to close both of those valves, one on the tank, one on our hose. Now that our valves are closed, over here on the other side, I've got a little bleeder, so we're gonna open that up. And it lets all the pressure out of this section of the pipe between the valves. Once that's off, we can loosen our coupler. And we have an adapter on here because there's two different size fittings, and the new supplier uses small fittings, and we had a big coupler, so there's an adapter in there. So now we got our hose loose. Oh, I got a strap. We always have this rubber strap just to help secure the hose so it's not flopping around. Okay, so now we've got that. We bring it over to our bar. Loop it up there. I just set it on this weight bracket. Holds it until we go to our other tank. Now we unhook the wagon. Pull our safety chains. Pull our pin. Some of this supplier's tanks have pins, some of them do not. This one did not. This is my pin. So we're going to take it. Actually, we're going to leave it right here. And we'll go pull up to our next tank and reverse the process. We have an extendable tongue on the back of our applicator, so that makes it a little easier to hook up. It's a lot easier with two hands than it is with one. But you get the idea. Alright, no pin on this one, so we'll use ours. Now when we get back in the tractor, we just got to remember to back up and lock that so we don't pull our hoses apart. Once we get our coupler tight, we can open up the valve. Whoop, close the bleeder. Close the bleeder. And then open the valve. See what happens when I get distracted? Now we can open the valve. That one. That one. And now the system is repressurized with liquid. Once we get it all the way open, we can get back in the tractor, back up, and lock our coupler. We gotta hook up our strap again. And we're good to go. It's much faster than refilling fertilizer on the planter. Working on this little triangle piece in the back here. All right, so let's show you the map of this field right there. So we're working off this stuff in the back. We've got up there done. We've got to finish across here. Gonna run this tank out and then have Phil come pick me up, and I'll probably call it a night. I could bring a truck back up here and work until I feel like quitting or we run out of gas, one or the other. But it's day 2 of side dress. We're not in that big a hurry. The corn's not that big. We've got time, so I don't see the need to rush, although it is supposed to rain tonight. If I had enough to finish this field, I might finish it, but we don't have enough anhydrous for that anyway. Just ran this tank empty. We're gonna call it a night here. Phil's on his way to pick me up. We did 102 acres just in this field since we came up here, and that doesn't include the 13 acres on the corner. So throw that with the 65 and 9 and 5 that we did earlier. We had a darn good day. Did close to 200 acres. Let's see, did we do 200 acres? Let me do some math. Close. 195 according to my John Deere Op Center app that tracks these things. So that's a really good day for doing the seed delivery this morning and then taking an hour and a half this afternoon to get that irrigation pipe stuff around. We did really, really well. So it is Memorial Day weekend and it is supposed to rain tonight. So I'm kind of banking on that. But we'll see what happens. If it doesn't rain tonight, we'll probably come up here and finish this in the morning, and maybe we'll keep going, maybe we won't. I don't know. I've got a birthday party tomorrow, and yeah, we'll just kind of see how things go. So we'll check in back at the farm and go from there.